Welcome to In the Margins, where we spark connection through stories. I'm your host, Laura Lynn Donahue, and each week I invite guests to step outside the lines and into the margins with me. You'll hear the untold stories, the stories of risk and reward, of triumph and trial, and everything in between. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to In the Margins. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you. I had so much fun with you in Tucson when we were at the Festival of Books. And
that was a blast.
Yeah, it really was. So thank you for taking time out of your day to be here with me. And I really appreciate it. I know you have a lot of followers and people who are staying up to date with your story. I would love to, if we could start maybe with the trial, and give our audience just a little bit of background so they understand why we're talking about the trial, and then we can go on from there. But does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Great.
the trial was a big deal. Some years ago, I was doing research for my second book, Raising Prey, and I wanted to see all the evidence and transcripts that they had from 1995, which was my original court case. In 1995, I ran away from my abuser, who basically kept me captive for 10 years. I was sexually abused. I went to the police, reported. It was dismissed. And I thought back then, I was, 15 years old. I thought back then it was because they didn't have enough evidence. So I'm writing this book, which talks about my childhood. I want these papers so that I could do research, because I never read what he said. I never read any of the details. I only know what I said. I was a minor.
Yeah.
I get the paperwork, and it's funny because all the physical evidence had already been destroyed, but they still had the transcripts and the documentation. So they sent it to me and they said, wow, this was really lucky. It was 6 days from being destroyed.
Wow.
I know. I said, no.
My goodness.
So all of it would have been gone in 6 days had I waited any longer. So I get this material and I start reading through it, and I read through my abuser's testimony to the cops, and I couldn't believe that this man walked. He never even outright denied anything.
And this is when you found these, but these were from when you were 15, right?
From 1995. Okay. So we're talking at the time that I hold these records, it would have been like a 27-year-old case.
Okay. Wow.
And then I read what the prosecution had said. The cops were ready to move forward. They brought it to the prosecution's office. They wanted to move forward. And the prosecution didn't want to. Her statements were quoted by the police because they were so stunned. She was quoted to say, well, a couple of things: that I was a troubled kid in school and I was likely making it up to get out of trouble. And then the other thing she said, which really, this is what really made me angry, was that she said the way I had described being assaulted, which was on my stomach, she said was impossible and unbelievable.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's devastating.
It was devastating. It was.
Do you want to tell us about your stomach at all, or is that
so?
Or just
what they were requiring back then, because we're talking 1995.
Right.
There was no training on how to interview minors, let alone rape victims, really.
Yeah. Sure.
And so they said, well, we need the most recent events. We need dates. And so because I couldn't give them dates of the past 10 years, I was giving them the most recent occurrence. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to know in detail exactly how it happened, how I was positioned, all these things, which at the time I was on my stomach. He was raping me from behind. So she had documented that that's impossible. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And this was a woman. So I get these papers and I'm fuming. I'm fuming because for 27 years, I'm thinking, I'm blaming myself completely, right? I should
Right.
have waited till it happened again. I shouldn't have ran away after multiple days had passed. I should have told someone sooner. Um, here I am going through my head wondering what I
Mm.
could have done to make it more so that the cops would have had the evidence.
Yeah.
And it turns out, here we are so many years later that they didn't need evidence. They
Mm.
needed to find me credible, and she dismissed me completely.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry.
It's
That
okay.
is, well, I mean,
It's
you've,
okay, but I appreciate you.
yeah, we have so much right now going on with the Epstein files and the belief of the women now is, I mean, the times have changed. Like you said, back in the 80s, they didn't have the interview process, the right skills in place, or maybe even the knowledge of how to interview, especially a child who's been abused in any way. So when we get to this point in 2025, women are starting in some respects to get respect. Others were maybe lacking. But yeah, I I mean it made me think of the Jeffrey Epstein files just because the perpetrators need to be prosecuted. And I feel like this is maybe part of, well, not just part of your story, but you wanted this prosecution to happen in a way that was fair to you.
Well, absolutely. Um, and the irony in all of it to me, it had nothing to do with the time. In this particular case, it had everything to do with this one
Mm,
person dismissing because the cops believed me.
mm,
The cops
wow.
believed me. It's in the reports. I mean, there was just no question about it. The cops believed me. They were ready to put him behind bars.
Mm,
So it really comes down to me, it comes down to how people perceive things. Like there's a grand and kind of general perception, right? You know,
hmm.
where
Yeah.
women are looked at in a certain way or disbelieved for certain reasons and so on and so forth. So there's that
Yeah.
general perception that we need to change. But there's also these individual perspectives that we need to
Mm,
change. And why do they
hmm.
exist? We don't know.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was a female. She was 2 years later, after my case, she was named Attorney of the Year for keeping the wrong people out of jail.
Oh my gosh.
So it's almost like there was an agenda at work.
Right.
She thought too many of the wrong people were being put behind bars and that we were going after a demographic or whatever. I'm not really sure what her thought process was, but
Yeah.
whatever it was, it dismissed me in that process. So it's just a matter of like, we really need as a people to be looking at all aspects when we're making decisions, especially decisions that
Yeah.
change and alter and affect people's lives.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
whole point is, how do I do that? How do I
Right.
do that where it's a level playing ground for everyone? I believe in
Mm,
the justice system. I went to college. I majored in criminal justice, minored in civil law. I have my certification in victim advocacy. I understand,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the field, so to speak. It's just a matter of the players.
Yeah.
So when I got that paperwork, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to let this go. I never
Yeah.
told the entire story because I wasn't given an opportunity to, because of the way they did things back then.
Right.
They did not allow you to give information. They wanted specifics, details, and dates. So if you
Yeah.
couldn't put those things all in a row for them chronologically, which is not how
Hmm.
trauma works,
Mm-mm.
then they didn't want that info.
Yeah.
So I fought with the county attorney's office, argued with them about how this case was not effectively followed up with and, investigated. And so that went back and forth for a while. And after a bit, they decided to hand it back over to TPD. TPD interviewed me. I spent a lot of time working with them. Through the course of that investigation, they found another victim Same perpetrator, different victim,
Mm.
who was still a minor at the time. So here we are at the 30-year, no, 29-year mark. My case, 29 years ago was my case.
Yeah.
And then we have a new victim that's a minor. So nothing with this person had changed.
Nothing.
And yeah, so they investigate, they get enough to go to trial, and we go. We go to trial.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and we won.
Oh my gosh. I remember. I mean, I remember seeing your uh, joy, your disbelief, your belief, just all of the things,
All of this.
all the things on social media. And from afar, I know some of the story, but to know more of the backstory, just as far as what was left out and how you were treated, um, is is really it makes it all look even more different, I guess, just the details. And before this trial, one of the ways maybe that you had worked through your trauma, and if I'm wrong about that, just tell me, but with your book, Facing the Elephants, that was your first book. And do you feel like that was a way for you to work through trauma, writing, or not?
No, it absolutely was. Honestly, so Facing the Elephants, I wrote before I even found the paperwork and knew about the whole potential of the trial.
Right.
Most of my young life, after I escaped this person who I was with for 10 years, I struggled. I didn't have any family. Um, my mother abandoned me with him. She was a prostitute. That's how she survived. Um, that's how she met him.
Mm.
So, I didn't have people around me. So when I left, I got put into the system. And, that's a whole nother story in itself. But all my teenage years, early adult years, I was struggling. I was
Sure.
struggling. I had two sons. I raised them by myself. I tried to go to school and raise them and work full time, all
Wow.
while suppressing this trauma in a very unhealthy way. I didn't even know I needed to deal with anything.
Mm.
I didn't know that I had undiagnosed issues as a result, like PTSD, which
Yeah.
dramatically affected sleep. I mean, I hardly slept. I
Sure.
was angry a lot. I would cry a lot. I mean, there was just so many things. And I finally kind of broke down. And the way I broke down, it was almost like a universal intervention, so to speak, is that I
Mm.
had these medical things happen to me that almost killed
Mm.
me.
Wow.
And because of that medical trauma, all of that trauma from my childhood just it surfaced. I don't know. It just popped up out of
Sure.
nowhere and
Yeah.
became something I couldn't suppress anymore.
Yeah. Well, let's um let's give our listeners just a little bit of that background, because I think that's really important, and the analogy of the internal physical exorcism of disease, or what's happening on the inside that's wrong, and then the physiological and mental and emotional that's coming with that is a lot. One of them is a lot, right? And so you were hospitalized for some bleeding in your stomach, is that right?
Yeah, so I was having some pain, right?
Mhm.
And it got worse and worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, kind of just doubled over, couldn't function. I go
Mm.
to the hospital. Turns out I had internal bleeding. They had no idea from where. They did a CT scan, and my whole abdomen was full of blood.
Rebecca.
I thought I was falling asleep. I felt so tired. I was in pain, but then eventually I just felt like I wanted to sleep. And
Mm.
they're like, "You're not sleepy, honey. You're dying. You're bleeding out."
Oh my goodness.
I was in the hospital for, I think, 2.5, 3 weeks trying to recover from that. It turned out my right ovary had ruptured open and I was just kind of dumping blood into my body. I had to have multiple transfusions. I mean, I couldn't eat. I had to feed like a tube that went into my stomach that fed me just like
Mm,
vitamins and protein. It was really horrible. Um, and it was that first medical incident because, as you know, there was multiples that followed, but it was that first medical incident that kind of ripped me out of the life I had created for myself. Like I said earlier,
mm,
I'd gone to college and, majored in
yeah.
criminal justice, and I had worked really hard to put myself in this world of investigation. I was working with child investigations.
Mm,
I was volunteering with the county attorney's office, working with the U.S. Marshal's office. I had kind of built this life for myself in law enforcement and
yeah.
realized through this, once all that trauma surfaced, that I can't be that close to the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yes. I don't even, it's just an emphatic yes. You couldn't. Do you mind giving us just a little hint about, just for those who haven't read your first book, how the elephants play into your recovery?
Yeah. So, Facing the Elephants, the title was kind of a play
Mm,
on on multiple things. Um, so, there's both metaphorical elephants at play here, like the
hmm.
elephant in the room.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's real elephants,
Mm,
physical elephants that in the middle of my crises, I had the beautiful opportunity to work with some elephants that gave me back a sense of peace
mm,
and a sense of purpose, honestly.
mm,
Because when you fall apart and you lose a career and you're kind of losing yourself in the process and you feel like I went to college, I built a career, I did all these things and now it's all gone. Like all of that's been wiped clean. I can't go back to that. You feel like what are you going to do?
yeah.
Um so working with the elephants was me taking a chance on something that I had never done before and it changed my whole life. So
Mm,
that's the little hint.
good. Yes, I like it. I like it. Yes, just enough, go out and get that book, and then you can look forward to the next one, because the next one is called Raising Prey,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about the title? I mean, it's Prey
Correct.
is
Raising Prey, I like to call it sort of the prequel to Facing the Elephants, because Facing the Elephants is a very like condensed story of that crisis period of the a couple of
mm,
years that took place that made me have to start telling my story. That gave me a voice. The Facing the Elephants is really the first opportunity I had to put my voice out there. But Raising Prey, it's everything that came before. It's about my childhood trauma. It's about intergenerational trauma and how we are raised within our family to believe certain things and to behave certain ways, what we see and how we react to what we see. Yeah, like I said, my mother was a prostitute. I don't think she was destined to be that way.
yeah.
At one point in her life, she was a happy girl,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of trauma in my mom's history and in my familial history that kind of
Sure.
cycled through and changed how people turned out, including myself.
Mm, mm,
Realizing that at some point, I think I was able to break that structure, break that cycle that had been
yeah.
created. But it's hard to recognize those things.
Yeah.
Raising Prey to me is more about the female role that's played within
Hmm.
a family and what we see happening to the women before us, to the women
Yeah.
around us, and to ourselves. And my
Yeah.
mother was raised to be preyed upon, and I was too. So that's kind of where I got my title.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very insightful. I was recently listening to the podcast, We Can Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you know Abby Wambach and Glennon's sister. And they were talking about, without divulging who, but they were talking about, I mean, on their show, they weren't divulging who it was, but family behavior that whether the family member knew it or not, that they were teaching that behavior. Um, um, and I would say maybe just for, let's say, I'll just do something for myself. For example, my dad liked to stuff his feelings and kind of push things down and not talk about things. And later on in life, I realized that I have that same quality. That he didn't intend for me to grow up not expressing my feelings, but he also had his own trauma. So there were reasons behind some of the behavior that you have to break the cycle so that each generation can be broken a little more and a little more until, we're still going to bring our stuff to our lives because we're, human beings. But just thinking about growing up and the environment that you were in, that your mom was raising prey and she was raised as prey. That's very that's a slap in the face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. It, I remember the way she talked about her mother. She hated her mother.
Mm.
Um, and then my grandmother hated her mother. Um, and at some point, for a while, I hated my mother,
Mhm.
all for a multitude of reasons. But I remember as a child just wanting her to love me. I just really
Mm.
wanted that attention, that affection, and I really wanted some sort of like approval from her.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember at one point being scared of a place we were and around the men we were around. And I remember telling her, why can't we just leave?
Mm.
And it was rare that I asked my mom questions that I knew would be a scary question because she was a very angry woman,
Mm.
and would lash out a lot. But I remember feeling afraid enough that I just needed to ask her, why can't we leave? And I remember her grabbing me by the top of my arm and shaking me.
Mhm.
She told me, we're here and I do the things I do for you.
Mm.
And I remember really internalizing that,
Oh.
really
Oh, yeah.
internalizing that and thinking about all the stuff I had seen her do in front of me
Mhm.
because we were really poor. There was
Yeah.
times I mean, I never had a bed most of almost all my childhood. I didn't have a bed. I was sleeping on the floor through a lot of the places we would stay at, and she would, bump around from house to house with different men. And I
Yeah.
would be awake 4, 5, 6 years old. I don't know how old. And I would see her with other men and things going on around me, or, whatever kind of abuse was happening, and thinking back to what she said, going, oh, she has to do that so that I can be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes you think that that's eventually what you're going to have to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, the environment that you're in and what you're being taught, what you're being modeled, and how would you know any different?
Right?
You
You wouldn't.
know? You wouldn't. Wow. Well, I know you have 2 sons,
I do.
and I think they're pretty crazy about you.
My sons are amazing. I am completely blessed to have them in my life and for them to have grown up the way that they did because they are just
Mm.
outstanding young men. So
Wow.
different, each of
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah.
different. But they get along so well. It's amazing.
Oh, that's great. I've heard you talk about them before, and I love to see that joy on your face.
They are my joy.
Good. I get it. I totally get it. Um, as you're writing Raising Prey, you dive into these documents that from the court, from your case back in the 90s. And do you stop writing for any reason? Are you waiting for some details to become more clear? Or are you waiting for the trial before you can finish the book? Does the trial play into the book?
You know, when that happened, I I did stop for a while.
Mhm.
I stopped. I felt this okay, when I wrote Facing the Elephants, I felt like I started some momentum in my life.
Mm.
That my voice mattered. I didn't think it was going to do really anything at the time, but I finally felt like I could talk about what happened a little
Mhm.
bit, and that grew. So that's why Raising Prey became something I started writing, and I felt, hey, I can talk about this. I can write this. I can publish this in some detail. So when I got those documents and found out what I found out, it almost took me back a bit, like pushed me back into a place for a minute where I felt like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't matter. My voice didn't matter. And for a minute, again, just a minute, I thought, what difference does any of it make if it's already been completely dismissed that I was just, some girl trying to get out of school trouble or whatever she thought.
Mm.
But then after that moment of normal human feelings passed, my anger kicked in.
And well, it should.
My anger kicked in, and it kicked in with fury. And yeah, I paused writing the book, and I decided that the book would be all that much more powerful if I pursued this. That my voice was going to be heard on all levels, not just shared, heard. And yeah, so I did pause it, and I did think that adding some stuff about that in the trial was crucial to Raising Prey.
Yeah, yeah. One of the reasons I ask you that is because when I was writing my book, there were things that came up for me that I felt like I had to stop writing and deal with. And I think when you're doing a memoir, the things that I hadn't just things that I needed counseling on, behaviors and patterns and um I just wondered. I was kind of curious just from my own experience. Often I don't hear authors talk about taking that pause. And I think it's interesting and it sure opened up a lot of opportunity and I mean for you for just hopefully the healing, the exposure of this predator. And I know that this is, I mean, quite, you know, Rebecca, it's quite the story. No one should have to go through what you went through as a child. Um, and, but your story will help others. There are people who are living similar stories that we don't know and that are getting pushed by the wayside. And um, I know that you mentioned to me that you're working on a documentary of your life. And I think that that would just be fascinating to know a little bit more about that because I mean, talk about exposure. I mean, you've got your books, you've got your trial, and then to actually see it, on the screen in details of the documentary style. I think that's pretty brave, really.
I know I know that my book has impacted people facing the elephants because I've had people come to me and tell me that. I've had people message me on social media and tell me that. I've had people come to signings and talk to me about the influence it's made on them.
Mm,
And
mm,
that means everything to me because that was the reason I wrote the book. And that's the
yeah,
reason I wrote Raising Prey. But when I got this case to be reopened and when I got this to go to trial, I realized that it had a deeper impact beyond people just telling me, this helped me, this changed my life.
mm,
Because two other victims that I won't mention what they're victims of or whatever, two other victims came to me specifically and said they knew about my story, they knew about what I was doing, they knew about my book, and they knew that I had challenged this old case and that it was being reinvestigated and that it was going to trial. They didn't know whether I was going to win it or not, but they
yeah.
knew I was going to trial and going to testify and that it was
Mm,
really old case. And so two victims came to me and disclosed that they were victims, disclosed what had happened to them, and told me that because of what I was doing, they wanted to come forward and they asked for my help.
Wow.
And so I sat with two different victims
Hmm.
to be their support while they told the police their story.
Hmm.
And both of them got a trial out of it.
Wow. I'm not usually a crier, but that made me cry. I mean, that was, yeah, that's,
Yeah, you're gonna make me teary eyed. I can't
no,
watch
sorry.
people cry without crying.
I don't have any Kleenex around, so we'll just, it's okay. Um, so in those experiences of being able to share and maybe offer someone else hope, I mean, what does that feel like?
Sorry.
It's okay. I know I made myself cry too.
I wish I could give you a tissue. um,
We can come back to it if you want to. It's not,
for me, it is hope. It's hope that there's gonna be a shift in the hearts of these women out there, that they can do it. That, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be scary, that it's going to be difficult and challenging, but that they're braver than they know. And that once they do, they will find peace. Not everybody's going to get a trial, not everybody's going to get a conviction. And I even
right.
had women that attended my trial, lots of women that came and sat the whole week at my trial that were in their 60s, that had been chronically molested or raped in the past, that were there to support me because they were sort of living vicariously through me,
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
me come up there after so many years had passed, tell my story, and then find a conviction out of it. They were getting some sense of peace, and they told me this. These women were crying, and they told me this. So I think that your question before, what do I think that this is going to do, this documentary piece, is that
Yeah.
I think that sometimes people need to see it. And if there's a platform out there that I can get my story across that reaches somebody in a way that maybe they're unreachable through books,
Yeah.
they're unreachable through podcasts, they're unreachable through a documentary, I don't know. I'm reaching
Yeah.
them in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's all I want, is to see that wave of change happen for women, because those women that sat in a courtroom that were in their 60s told me, when they were young, had they said anything, their
Mm.
mothers would have told them to keep their mouths shut,
Mm. Yeah.
and that was the era.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly, you're right. It was. It seems so impossible to have that was the way we just pushed it under the rug, didn't tell. Yeah, that I'm glad that has changed. I hope it's changed more than we know. I mean, I hope that um, girls, women, children, boys are speaking out to someone that they trust and are being validated in whatever the situation is. Um, how else do we break a cycle? So, how far along is the documentary? Have you started it, or is that coming out? And what? How long do we have to wait?
Well, you definitely have to wait till 2026. Um,
Okay.
it's not going to come out till 2026. Do I have a release date yet? No. Um, I have been thinking about a documentary for over a year now, which means I have a lot of content already. I have been accumulating content for about a year now, and now I have a producer in place, and
Great.
interviews start next week. So,
Wow.
yeah, so people in my life, including myself, will be interviewed about my past and the trial. There will be a lot of other things tied into it. It's going to have like a three-part kind of storytelling mode where it's like part one, part two, part three.
Mm.
Now, is that going to be in series? I don't know. Is it going to end up as like a one long movie? I don't know. I don't know any of that
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do know it will be done by next year.
Wow. Well, I mean, next year is really not that far away.
But it's not. It's not. And I know that we will have a actual trailer for the documentary by Tucson Festival of Books.
Awesome. That's in March.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, gosh, can I say I'm proud of you?
Of course you
It
can.
seems so juvenile, but or I don't know, patronizing, but it's just like that's a lot. Um, I really appreciate your sharing
No,
with
I
us.
appreciate you. I think that what you're doing is also so let's switch it around and put it on you for a second.
Okay, all right.
I think what you're doing is amazing. So, it's one thing for me to tell my story, it's another thing for you to tell your story. But to go around and to have people tell their story like you're doing and to continue to breathe that into the world is so crucial. It's important. People have a
Yeah,
voice and they're meant to be heard. And
yeah.
we never know who needs to hear it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's okay if it's just a handful. If it's just one, if it's one person that needs to hear that story, one person that it got to, if we can all, as many of us as we can, tell our stories, then we create community
Hmm.
because then the stigma or the misperceptions that fades away and you see the humanity that's there and that we are all a lot more similar than different because we do have stories and as a celebrity who has a story, their story is going to get told. Theirs is going to be on, the news or the movie or, they have this large platform to reach a large amount of people. But I think it is just as important for the smaller platforms, whether it's this podcast, whether it's your documentary or a book, is trying and reaching for people. Um, and you know, I want to know stories because I want to know people, and I just think that this is a good way to do it. Um, and of
It
course, I
is.
was encouraged and supported by W Brand Publishing. Thank you, Julie. Yes. But yeah, I'm so glad you've been here with me today. Oh, I have a few questions that we ask kind of toward the end. We don't
Okay.
have to be finished, but I don't want to forget. The question is, what are you reading, watching, and listening to? So basically, what we're going to eventually do is put together like a playlist, but one of books, one of television, one of podcasts, or just what's out there. You're always looking for some new content to dive into. But
Sure.
it didn't have to be current. It could be a favorite or you want to
Oh,
start.
hmm.
Did you have a favorite binge?
So let's start with what I'm reading
Okay, perfect.
because I flip flop between books a lot. Sometimes I'll read something new. Sometimes I'll go back to something I just want to read again because I just want to absorb that again. And I am on something that I wanted to read.
What are you reading? Tell us about where you are right now as far as
So
reading.
the reading, it's something I've read before, but I wanted to read it again because it's just one of those things where you read it again and you find something more from it. It's called, you're gonna laugh because it has elephants in it, but It's called Elephant Company.
I haven't heard of it. Elephant Company. Okay.
Elephant Company, and it's a World War II book. Amazing. It's a true story, and it's about a particular British man who moves to India, take over the teak business,
Mhm.
and you have to read it. It's a tearjerker. It's emotional for a lot of reasons, but it also it's one of those books that will amaze you. Um,
Yeah.
and it will change how you feel about elephants if you really don't care about elephants, because
Mm.
in the end, the elephants are the hero of the story.
Oh, wow. Well, that's going on my list for sure. Elephant Company.
Elephant Company.
Okay.
Oh, look,
I wrote it down.
Elephant Company.
Nice. Nice plug. We'll have to get in touch with the author.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, um, so do you watch TV? Do you
I,
binge shows
I
or?
do binge shows. I don't like
Yep.
cable or any actual regular television.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will pay to not see ads.
Totally understand it. How many medications do we have to know about?
So I am for the second time, and it's going to be another disappointment because they never finished the series. So I already know it's coming. But it plays into another book I read. I am binge watching American Gods,
Oh,
which was
I haven't.
originally a book written by Neil Gaiman.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I love that book. So when they came out with a show, I had to watch it, and they nailed it, but they never did a third season to finalize the show or the book. So
Man.
it's really disappointing. So I'm sorry to anybody who looks it up, watches it, loves it, and realizes there's no ending.
Yeah.
You have to read the book, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. I have to read yeah, I have to read the book. Neil Gaiman, he's a great creative.
He is very
Yeah.
interesting.
And so so you have also read that book.
Yes.
Is the book better? They always say the book is better. I don't know.
You know, the book was amazing. I've read it multiple times, but the
Mm,
show is equally amazing. And I think it's because Neil Gaiman had something to do with the production. And the
yeah.
way Neil Gaiman writes makes it really easy to plug people into the roles. And you wouldn't know it until you've watched a show based on one of his books, is that he doesn't actually ever really truly describe a character, just behavior. Very interesting.
That is very interesting. Yeah, behavior can become your description. I mean, yeah. Well, okay, so there's another one. Um, and then what about what about listening? Do you listen to music or podcasts or?
Sometimes I'll listen to podcasts, for sure, but I'm more of a reader.
Mhm.
I mostly, if I'm listening to something, I'm listening to music.
Yeah.
And that varies.
Any particular era that you lean toward?
I'd say my top two, and it's one has nothing to do with the other. My top two is probably 90s grunge, because
Mhm.
I was a 90s teenager.
Yep.
So it's just nostalgic and fun.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I am obsessed with like Bill Withers, Aretha Franklin, Al
Mm.
Green, like that kind of music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otis Redding, I could dive into that stuff and get lost for days.
Yeah. It kind of feels like a Sunday jazz-ish
Yeah.
blues with some.
Bluesy, jazzy,
Yeah.
emotional, soulful. It's just, I
Yeah.
don't know. That kind of music I've been listening to the most probably my whole life.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, well, good. Well, it's been so good to have you, Rebecca. Thank you for being here and
Thank you for having
keep you're welcome. Keep us posted. And I'll mention in the show notes if and when there's a release date, I can add to the show notes and for the book Raising Prey and for the documentary. Thank you again for being here. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not really going to say bye.
Okay.
I just want, I don't know. I'm like, what if I say bye and then she hangs up? And so anyway,
So you'll
it's
edit that
still,
out.
yeah, we'll edit that out. But I just wanted to tell you that you're the second person that's brought up Neil Gaiman on my podcast. Have you met Rich Merritt yet?
Mm-mm.
He's a new author on W Brand, and he wrote The Secret Life of a Gay Marine Porn Star.
Oh, yeah, I saw the book.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, he and I were talking about Neil Gaiman for some reason. But a very dear friend of mine writes for him, and has been a showrunner for him in Los Angeles. What was the series? Shoot. The Neil Gaiman series that was on. Oh, I did this last time and I couldn't remember what it was. But anyway, I was thinking about that and I was like, well, maybe I should tell Alan that they needs to push Neil Gaiman to finish that series so that Rebecca can have some closure.
It is the most, I adore the book. Like, I've probably read the book like 8 times.
Yeah.
Like, I read it once and was like, oh my God, I have to read that again. And it's just one of those things. So when the
Yeah.
show came out, I was like, there's no way it's going to be any good. It blew me away. The characters are flawlessly phenomenal. The show plays out so well. They couldn't have done it better. And then, boom, it got canceled before they could finish it. And I was so pissed off.
Oh, it got canceled. It wasn't that they didn't want it. It wasn't that they didn't want to finish. It got canceled.
I can't even
Oh, I
imagine
hate
how
that.
it got canceled. How
Yeah.
did somebody not love that show? It's the best damn show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Neil
Wrong
Gaiman,
people.
though, he's out there when it comes to creativity. Some of the things he comes up with, when you look up American Gods, some of the characters and what they do in the storyline is probably a little much for some people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of nudity in that show because it's a very graphic book.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe that was part of it.
Yeah.
Just not up
Yeah.
certain people's alley, but
Yeah.
I
Maybe
loved
so.
it.
Wow. Well, thank you again, really, from my heart, for being here. And sorry about the trouble that we had at the beginning.
I'm sorry.
Well, you don't need to apologize, but that's why I try to remember to give my phone number just in case, because you just never know with technology what might or might not happen.
Well, now I have your phone number.
Now you have my phone number. Yes, we can text.
We can, yes.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I know you've got a big week next week if you're starting with some of your interviews for the documentary. Well, best of luck on that.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Welcome to In the Margins. I am so excited about today's guest, Rebecca Black. Rebecca is the author of Facing the Elephants, and she is currently working on her second book, Raising Prey. And she's also working on a documentary. This conversation does have some sensitive content to it. So if you have little ears listening, or if you've experienced trauma and you don't want to hear about trauma, then this is not the episode for you. But it is a great conversation. Rebecca is an extraordinary woman and she has quite the story to tell. So stand by as I welcome Rebecca Black. Wow, that was an amazing, amazing interview with Rebecca. Rebecca, thank you again for coming on my podcast, In the Margins, for talking to me, for being open and vulnerable, and for sharing your story. I will help you share it. And speaking of sharing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to In the Margins podcast, because that is the best way for us to get new followers and new listeners. And everyone's got a story to tell. So let's hear yours. Thanks for joining us in the Margins. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Our social media handle is at Podcasting in the Margins on Instagram and Facebook. And please stay connected. Like, follow, and share our podcast. What you do can help our podcast be successful. In the Margins is produced and edited by Dawn Donahue. Our guest liaison is Kim Orendor, and we're supported with gratitude by W Brand Publishing.
where your story matters. Thanks for joining us.